Before we begin, there will be spoilers for the 1000-year Blood War arc of Bleach in the video to come. After the battle with Aizen, many of the Vizard were able to retake their former positions within the Gotei 13, becoming captains once again, and cementing themselves within the reader's collective consciousness at the same time, even if they did ultimately underwhelm. Aikawa Love, however, once the captain of the 7th Division over 100 years ago, wasn't given the same privilege, and as a result, I think feels like a forgotten member of the Vizard when compared to some of his captain contemporaries. But back in the fake Karakura Town arc, he was actually one of the Vizard we got to see a decent amount from, including of his Zanpakuto, Tengumaru. And so, for our next Bankai theory crafting video, we're taking a look at Aikawa Love, yet another Shinigami with a fire-type Zanpakuto, though we've only ever seen one ability of Tengumaru's in action. And that's a reflection of why this video was actually quite difficult to make, despite being a former captain. In comparison to even some of the vice captains we've looked at in this series before, Love's time in the source material really is very limited, and his time using Tengumaru even more so. However, there is a consistent theme across Love's abilities and his aesthetic, and that is something we can work with. Plus, despite having numerous characters with fire-type abilities in Bleach, Kubo always goes out of his way to try and make them feel distinct from one another, to try and make them feel unique, and that's something I've tried to replicate and continue here as well when thinking of ideas for Love's Bankai. So, happy Valentine's Day everyone! Yes, this video is coming out today purely because the character is called Love. Look, it works well enough as far as I'm concerned, alright? Over the years we've done mostly character analysis videos when it comes to the season of Love, ranging from Riruka to our Lord and Saviour Pepe, and this time I wanted to take a slightly different approach. Hey, not only is his name Love, but his Zanpakuto even has a heart-shaped guard. He totally fits. Anyway, like I was saying, Tengumaru was a difficult Zanpakuto to work with. As always, I've come up with a variety of ideas for his Bankai here, 5 in fact I think, but make sure to let me know in the comments what you think and what your ideas for Love's Bankai are as well. Alright, let's take a look at Tengumaru and its blazing Bankai. As always though, first a brief look at Tengumaru itself. With the release command crush or slam depending on the translation, Love's Zanpakuto transforms into a colossal kanabo, a spiked war club used in feudal Japan. It's also similar in appearance to a cudgel, hence the name of the chapter it was first revealed in, the metal cudgel flinger. Tengumaru Shikai is divided into 2 parts, an enormous handle wrapped in white cloth that's almost as large as Love himself, and a colossal black club lined with white spikes. The club itself is massive, but Love is capable of wielding it with deft ease and in a variety of ways, flinging the huge weapon about and even spinning it rapidly in the air to help slow his descent. Tengumaru's body is sturdy enough to block incoming Sero from Stark's guns, and the club packs enough power and weight to completely demolish a building from a single strike. In general then, this is a Shikai that packs a brutal punch, something we'll discuss again in a moment. Tengumaru is a strange Zanpakuto as well, in that its size seems to vary between appearances, sometimes being small enough, though still huge, to rest on Love's shoulder, while other instances show it clashing, for example with Komamura's Tenken, which is gigantic. At the same time, despite its sturdy nature, the way it's depicted gives it a uniquely elastic feel thanks to the way Love is able to fight with it so capably. As I mentioned earlier, it is also a fire-type Zanpakuto, though that isn't immediately apparent simply by looking at it. The only ability we've ever seen Love actually use with it is Hifuki no Kodzuchi, where Love lifts Tengumaru over his head and ignites it, the entire club engulfed in a roaring flame. Love then brings his Shikai down in a massive arc, and a huge bolt of fire is flung from the end, slamming into its target and unleashing several earth-shaking shockwaves of fire which ripple outwards and destroy all in their path. So I mean, all in all, Tengumaru is a pretty basic Zanpakuto. It's mostly used for clubbing enemies, funnily enough, though I do like how quickly Kubo is able to demonstrate both its elemental and defensive capabilities, and even a little cartoonish maneuverability too, which shows Love's clever usage of the weapon. It's used only 3 times in the series. Tengumaru's initial reveal comes in Love's battle against Stark, where he rushes the Espada and tries to use his Shikai to get the drop on him, swatting Stark out of the sky several times after successfully blocking his Sero. Interestingly, a newly resolved Stark is seen later defending against Tengumaru's sheer bulk with just his guns. After obliterating the surrounding area with Hifuki no Kodzuchi, Love takes on Stark's wolves using Tengumaru as well, utilising its huge size to bat several of them out of the air at once. Again, we can see the Shikai's changing size here, and I can't help but think it would be cool if Love actually had manual control over that. The second time we see him use Tengumaru, Love and Komamura both attempt to jump Aizen during the final showdown with the Gotei 13's forces. In this instance, Tengumaru is colossal and clashes with Tenken, the 2 weapons seemingly crushing Aizen in their wake. Aizen, of course, survives, however, and quickly takes out Love. We then don't see Tengumaru for almost 300 chapters, which is complete madness when you think about it, as he and several other Vizards attempt to take Gerard Valkyrie down by surprise. Once again, using Hifuki no Kodzuchi, Love attempts to combine it with Lisa and Hachi's abilities, resulting in a seismic explosion that swallows up the sternritter. However, Gerard is unharmed and defeats Love in a single hit. I'm really hoping the anime gives us a little more where that fight is concerned in particular. Honestly, it would be a good time to see Love's Bankai. So ultimately, not the greatest showing of a Zanpakuto ever, and it really doesn't give us a lot to work with either. What I find most strange about Love is that his aesthetic is actually really cool, with a Zanpakuto taking inspiration from the Tengu and a hollow mask themed on the Oni. Love's powers and abilities seem to be styled around demons, supernatural entities, or specifically yokai. There's so much potential there for mysticism and strangeness, but when you break down what little we've actually seen of Love, his character is mostly just about smashing things with a club. So it's difficult to think of a Bankai that both reflects and respects what we've seen of the character to date, but also pushes the boundaries a bit for what this character could really be like were he given the time to shine. Anyway, that's enough about that. Let's take a look at the Bankai ideas I've managed to come up with. So, as usual, we'll start with what I think is the simplest idea first. Rather than lean into the Tengu or yokai imagery of Love's aesthetic first of all, this Bankai instead focuses on one thing only: fire. I mentioned earlier that Kubo tries to mix it up between his multiple fire users, from Yamamoto's all-consuming blade with the power of the sun to Isshin's flame that's fueled by his own blood. Then you've got characters like Hinamori, who fling explosive fireballs, and Basby, whose flame is applied very creatively through his burner finger technique. Love has only ever demonstrated one fire ability, so I had to go off the beaten path a bit for this one, and went with a form of fire that I think is rarely seen in Bleach, if ever: lava. In this Bankai, Love lifts Tengumaru above his head and the spikes retract into the club. Red hot lava then begins to spill from the gaps where the spikes used to be, bright streams of crimson and orange running down the length of the club. Before the lava touches his hands, however, Love then brings Tengumaru downwards, driving the club into the ground beneath his feet and causing an almighty earthquake. At the epicenter, the earth shatters, splitting like a cracked pane of glass and sending huge chunks of rock jetting upwards. Amidst the cracks, lava begins to flow like blood through veins, blindingly bright streams of fire surging through the ground. As the earth continues to rumble and quiver, more and more of it is split and broken apart, and more lava comes rupturing up from below, bursting out like streams and waves. For comparison's sake, think of it like a slightly lesser version of Yamamoto's Enetsu Jigoku. Yes, Ryujin Jaka really is that powerful. With the ground now turning to dust beneath his feet and rivers of lava forming, Love can then continue the fight with his lava-coated club. While a fairly simple Bankai, I quite like it. I think it would make for a real visual treat, imagining the earthquake split across a double-page spread. But more importantly, I think it conveys a sense of wrath well, something that does actually fit with Love's overarching theme. It's as though his Bankai unleashes the rage of nature itself, and that's kind of cool. Now then, for the rest of these Bankai ideas, we'll be diving into the sinister world of the yokai. One of my favourite things about a Bankai is often the theatrics and presentation of it, and I really enjoy when they cause some kind of passive change to the world around them when they're activated. For example, Yamamoto's Zanka no Tachi drying out everything in a huge radius, or Kyoraku's Katen Kyokot's Karamatsu Shinju turning the world bleak and melancholy. So, for each of the following ideas, the same passive change is applied to the world. When Love activates his Bankai, the sky grows dark and cloudy, and the winds around them pick up greatly, as though a storm is approaching but hasn't yet arrived. For the second Bankai idea, Love's Tengumaru is once again lifted above his head, but this time it ignites, bursting into flame. As he holds it there, from the darkness behind him, a giant Tengu emerges, or at least a giant Tengu mask anyway, its mad eyes burning like fireballs through the smoke. Most of the demon is hidden, submerged behind streaming black smoke, the ripples of which give the illusion of feathers, but two huge hands appear on either side of the head, their gnarled, bony fingers curling, long claws gleaming in the mist. Overall, it's a little reminiscent of any Bankai that summons an enormous construct behind the wielder, whether that's Komamura, Mayuri, or Kisuke, for example, but only really in appearance. Love has no real control over the Tengu, and nor does he need to, because its appearance and what it can do is quite limited. Instead, the demon reaches down and takes hold of Tengumaru itself, morphing the Zanpakuto to match its own towering size before bringing it down in one fell swoop. And so Tengumaru brings the club down upon Love's enemy, obliterating them and the surrounding area in a plume of flame. Unlike the last Bankai, this one is really designed to end the fight in a single blow. It's a true finisher. Up next, we have a multi-stage Bankai that I think is quite complex and is certainly probably the most abstract of the Bankai ideas here today. When Love activates Bankai this time, not only does the normal area of effect passive change apply, but the terrain itself transforms too, turning the surrounding battlefield into a craggy range of small mountains and jagged rocks. At this point on, the combatants involved are now in what we'll call the Tengu zone. Tengumaru is always watching, and it has a very fiery temper. Both Love and his opponent must abide by the rules unless they want to incur the Tengu's anger. This Bankai would be quite unique, I think, in that it would put both Love and his enemy through a series of trials to determine who is worthy to survive, with each trial being known as a rage of the Tengu. The first trial tests the fighter's fortitude, with Tengumaru striking them with a hidden blade as they continue to fight. In the second trial, both fighters find themselves under Tengumaru's spell, placing them in an illusion that makes it nearly impossible to recognize living beings, conjuring up shadows and spirits instead for them to fight while they try and find each other. In the third trial, Tengumaru unleashes the fury of the wind around them, whipping it into a frenzy that shreds and batters them on all sides, again as the fight continues. Finally, the last rage of Tengu sees their very souls ignited, and if they can withstand this incineration, they're free of the curse. But much again like Kyoraku's Bankai before it, if Love is able to reach the final stage of his Bankai, it could result in a guaranteed kill on his opponent as their soul is consumed. As far as following the rules of the Tengu go, I think it would be something fairly simplistic, as you have to try and keep fighting. If you fall down to the ground for a certain amount of time, that counts as you having failed the tests that it's putting you through. That's quite a weird and conceptual Bankai idea, I know, and like I said before, it does remind me of Kyoraku's Bankai a lot, but it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for Love to have an incredibly powerful Bankai. Just because he's a forgotten Vizard doesn't necessarily mean he's weak, being one of the captains from over 100 years ago. Now, for the fourth Bankai idea, I do actually quite like this one. Love's Tengumaru disappears completely, or at least the club section does. The black club section of the Shikai is drawn back into the handle as the spikes then rearrange themselves atop the handle to form a massive metal war fan. The magical feather fan is a well-known tool of the Tengu, but to be honest, I just can't see Love wielding a fan or a pair of fans at all, going back to the idea that he's much more of a brutish fighter and certainly seems to be without any real finesse at all. So that's why I think it makes sense then to combine the fan elements with his Shikai's current design, making it slightly more unwieldy and inelegant to use. At the same time, Love gains an enormous pair of colourful, kite-like wings that allow him to make huge leaps into the sky in order to facilitate this Bankai. With this Bankai, the howling winds that the activation of Love's Bankai in general conjured really come into effect. Leaping into the sky with his huge two-handed fan, Love fans the tempestuous winds towards his enemy, turning the thrashing gales into a violent hurricane or tornado that tears through the air, decimating everything in their path. Love is capable of turning up the heat as well with this Bankai, igniting his fan to imbue the winds with fire, creating a terrible firestorm that he's capable of manipulating freely. By using his weapon, Love fans the flames, whipping them into flaming spirals that go racing towards the target. Despite his nature, this is probably the most active of Love's Bankai ideas, resulting in him soaring into the air and then masterfully moulding the wind to his desired shape. And again, I like the persistent idea of Love utilising the forces of nature to his advantage. Alright, for Love's final Bankai idea, things are getting dark. As Love activates his Bankai, a shroud of fog descends upon him and his enemy, transporting them to a sinister place. Tengu-do, the realm of Tengu, where only the most wicked and evil of people are sent. Here in Tengu-do, Tengumaru's Bankai ability takes hold, releasing both fighters of their moral restraints. Now uninhibited, free of their shackles, they're able to fight without honour, dignity, compassion, or any emotion that might otherwise hold a noble fighter back. Ripping and tearing at each other in a terrible, bleak world, only one may leave. The other is doomed to live without happiness and enlightenment forever, left to die in the dark. This Bankai helps to showcase a fighter's true strength in that sense, as though every battle were like, say, Kenpachi versus Unohana, two bloodthirsty demons dueling in the dark. In the realm of the Tengu, both Love and his opponent can pursue the fight and their desires without punishment, turning battles into savage bloodbaths from which there is no escape. You could say this Bankai removes civility, or to go even further, humanity from the fighters, turning them into beasts. As the fights drag on, the realm of Tengu itself gets involved, conjuring up fearsome wind and firestorms around the fighters. Tengumaru itself retains its Shikai design in this Bankai, allowing Love to continue battling with it. I can imagine Kubo giving Love some extremely ominous expressions as he monologues about morality and wickedness, the sides of good and evil, and more. Were this to be the Bankai idea, I like to imagine Kubo was teasing it when Love ripped the Menos Grande apart with his bare hands, having briefly tapped into Tengu-do to achieve such brutality. But those are my 5 ideas for Love's Bankai, bringing this video to a close. What did you think? Do you like any of them? Could you see any of them working for Tengumaru or not? As always, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments, and make sure to let me know any Bankai ideas you might have for the Vizard captain. I do think Love is a difficult one, to be honest, but he does have a really awesome and unique theme that has a ton of depth to it, and I always love seeing what you guys come up with as well, so I'll be intrigued to see what you make of him and his Zanpakuto. Alright guys, but that's it for the video. As always, I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know again your thoughts down in the comments below, and I hope you have a lovely Valentine's Day. As always, I want to end the video by saying a massive thank you and giving a huge shout out to my supporters over on Patreon. I really do appreciate each and every one of you so very much. If you love what I do here on YouTube and you want to take that support from me another step further, which again I would truly appreciate, you can do just that by supporting me over on Patreon to get your name in the credits just like this and to get every single video I release absolutely ad-free. Alright guys, but until next time, I'll catch you later and I'll see you then.